Wow, becoming a United Methodist pastor or pastor at all was a really was an interesting journey, I suppose, at least for me. I think it is for everybody. It's all unique for each one of us. I was in eighth grade, and our church, First United Methodist Church in Corpus Christi, had a big summer camp. It was called Christian Adventure Camp, or CAC, and it was held at the HEB Foundation near Lakey, Texas. So on that year, I was again eighth grade. I had a mountaintop experience. It's where I accepted Jesus Christ in the fullness, I think, of what that means in my life. At that point, I didn't know that what happened that night would lead me on a journey to where I am today. So after that happened, 2 years later, my father passed away. I was 15 and I had to go to work. And the first 4 years, I worked summer and holidays for the Nueces County Parks and Recreation Department out on Padre Island. So I worked on the island. It was really good. It was cool. I loved it. But I was a junior now in college and realized I need to do something else. This is nice, but this is not going to be a career for me. So I came home. It was spring break, and my mom said, "What are you going to do this summer for a job?" And I don't know. And she was a typical mother, says, "Well, you've got to work somewhere." And I go, "Well, I don't know what to do." And she handed me a newspaper. It was the want ads or the personnels and all that. And it was circled an advertisement, and it was for a youth directorship over at Aransas Pass, Texas. And I said, "Oh, Bob, you've got to be kidding me. They're not going to want some long-haired surfer kid over there." And she said, "You at least ought to try. I think you could do it." So I called and they said they would interview me, and I got my hair cut a lot shorter than it was and still long. And I went over there. I thought it was a poor interview. And 2 days later, they called me and said I had the job. So now I have this job over there, and I uh, went to work, and I was trying to figure out, how do you become a youth director? Well, then they asked me to preach. I never preached in my life. I had no idea how to do it. And so I preached, and there was a retired pastor there. And he was so kind to me. He goes, "One day you're going to be a bishop." Well, I didn't become a bishop, but I became a pastor. So that began my journey, to wanting to be a minister. And so I went to work then for Chicago Bridge and Iron, building offshore oil rigs. And one day I came home to my wife and I said to her, I said, "Honey, we're going to go to seminary." And we packed up and took everything we had, and we showed up at St. Paul's School of Theology. And they said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I sent in my registration last week to go to school here." And they said, "Well, it doesn't work like that." And I said, "I can't go home. I don't have any money." So they let us stay in the dorm for the weekend. And the very next Monday, I showed up in class, and they go, "Who are you?" And I told them, "I'm Tom Howe. I'm coming to school here." And so the dean called me in and said, "You can't do it like this." And I said, "Well, I can't go home. I don't have any money." And so 2 days later, he called me and he said, "All right, we're going to let you in on probation." And I said, "For what?" And he said, "For audacity, just to show up like this." And so I ended up in seminary, got ordained deacon in the Southwest Texas Conference. Then Chris Andrews called me and he brought me to Louisiana. I was his associate at Aldersgate United Methodist Church. Uh, and but I did not fully realize my call until the night that I was ordained elder. I'd struggled with it some. Am I really called for this? Am I not? Am I just playing at being a minister? Has God really called me? But that night, Bishop Ernie T. Dixon, who was at the Southwest Conference, uh, he placed his hands on me along with our bishop. And when they said those words, "Take thou the authority," it was just like something went through me. And all of a sudden I realized, yeah, I've been called. I mean, this is really what God wants me to do. And so here I am, 41 years later at retirement. Uh, Never thought twice about it. This is what I was called to do and what God wanted me to do. Yeah, Stories that I'll never forget. I think there were 2. What is funny, and the other one is a story about how God's Spirit can really act in the life of people. I was at a Cornerstone United Methodist Church out in East New Orleans by Bishop Oden, and he told me at the time, he said, "Listen, Tom, uh, you're probably going to have to close the church and then reopen it in a school or something because they were in very deep debt at the time. They had several lawsuits against the church. And so that was kind of the plan. But once I got there, I fell in love with the places, and I thought, we don't need to close this. We just got to figure out how to get more people. It's going to take more people to pay the bills, and we'll have to refinance. We can do something." Well, a couple of months later, we get the word that the sheriff's department is going to padlock the church at Christmas. And, we had to be out. So we were in the process of trying to take things out of the church that we were allowed to take out. And I called the bishop and I said, we need to have a meeting. Let's get a group together. So we got a group together. We had long conversations about how can we find a way to finance it. And we came up with a way, but it was going to require 2 things. First, it would require our church to raise 50,000 in the next 2 weeks. And then second, for the district to give us $100,000 from their church extension funds. So we quickly held a church meeting and we were in there, and it was at night. And I remember Dr. Suzanne White sitting next to me, and we told the story. We asked the people, we got to raise some money. It was dead silence, not a word. And finally I said, well, I'll just close this with a prayer. And when I went to do that, Miss Betty stood up, and she was an older lady in our church, and said, well, I don't really have much, but I'm willing to give 5,000 out of my retirement fund to help save our church. Well, that set things into motion. And James stood up and he said, I'll give a 5,000, I'll match yours. And someone else said, well, I don't have that, but I'll give 100, and someone else 500. And when the night was over, we had raised our 50,000. I mean, it was one of those things that sent chills down your spine, across your body, the power of God. So now came our district meeting, and we were asking for 100,000. Our DS at the time, he was opposed to it. He said, I just don't think this is a good use of our money. And as I stood at the door greeting people one after another, we love you, Brother Tom. We love your people. This isn't a good use of our money. We're going to vote it down. When we got in there to the meeting, and it just didn't sound very good for us. And at the very end, Robert Harrington, who had come out of retirement to be my assistant pastor, he stood up and gave his witness. And he told how that morning a Jewish family, Steve and Patsy, had converted to Christianity. He told the story about another family, and on and on. And he just gave the witness of this Cornerstone church. And then they took the vote after a long prayer. And the vote came out like this. There was about 150 people there. Only 15 voted against it. That was the power of God's Holy Spirit. And Cornerstone is there to this very day. And I don't ever want that story to be lost, how God acted in those moments to bring this church not only to fruition, but to plant it and keep it there. But I have a second story. It's kind of a funny one. Bishop Oden, yeah, I was in Thibodeau at the time, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and he calls me. And I said, hello. And he goes, Tom? I go, yeah. He said, this is Bill. Bill who? Bill Oden. I go, who? Your bishop. I go, oh, it's appointment time. It's in the spring almost. And I'm going, why is he calling me at 3 in the morning? And he said, is there a place to go fishing between Grand Isle and Thibodeau? I go, yeah, there are a lot of places. I said, you just fish off the side of the road. He said, no. I mean, with the boat. I said, yeah, there's a lot of places you could put in a boat. Tom, I mean, your boat. Oh, yeah, you can borrow my boat. He said, I don't know where to go. I need you to take me. I said, oh, he goes, and I have the Oklahoma cabinet with me. A storm came up. We can't go offshore, and we're just stuck here. I said, all right, meet me in Dulac. So we got down to Dulac. I got them all in the boat, and I went out through the marsh, and I brought my shrimp net so they could see what shrimping was like and get our bait. So we got a lot of shrimp, and I'm putting it in there. And I looked up at him. I said, Bishop, do you know where we are? He goes, not a clue. I said, "You think you can find your way back to the dock?" He goes, not a chance. And I said, "Well, it seems like this is a good time to talk about my appointment." And he never let me forget saying that to him. When I think about people I'm thankful for, I'm really thankful for Chris Andrews, who brought me to Louisiana. He saw something in me and wanted me to be his associate. And I'm forever thankful for Chris. I learned he was a good mentor. He taught me a lot of things that were very helpful. I'm thankful to my former spouse, Diane. She had a tremendous heart for kingdom building, and we were good partners in ministry together. And I'll always be thankful for the part of life that we shared together. And I'm thankful for my children, for Tessa and for her wife Janae, and their support of me over the years. I'm very thankful for Austin and his wife, Courtney, and then for my youngest son, Dustin, and for my stepdaughter, Jennifer. All of them have been blessings in my life in different ways. And then, one of the things that keep you going are your grandkids. And in my case, there's Caitlin and Garrett and Eleanor and Callahan. Uh, just fantastic kids, and they always have questions, and I love to talk to them about God and about faith. And then there was Maritza. Maritza was my inspiration. She was my go-to person over the last few years. Just my heart and soul, and even though I know she can't hear this, I think she can feel it. In heaven above, and so I'm so thankful for her. I'm thankful for my churches. Interesting thing about churches, they all have personalities, and they have personalities within them. This is what I'd say about my churches. Every one of them helped me grow in ministry. Every person in the church helped me grow. There are people who see the same as you do, and there are others who see things very differently than you see them, and they're sometimes very vocal about it. But on both cases, they were mentors. They helped me to step back, rethink, reevaluate. Am I approaching things right? Am I really thinking this through? How can I become a better pastor to people who think different or think the same thing? I'm thankful for all of these beautiful people that have blessed my life. I'm thankful very much for all the staffs that I've either worked on or have worked with me as teams. All my staff have been teams. I don't want to pick out any one, two, three, four people. If I do that, then I'm just going to create issues that I don't want to create. I love them all, and I wouldn't be here where I am today. And I think I'm in a very good spot if it wasn't for them, their prayers, their support, and their love. I just can't say enough about the people I've encountered over the years, and the grace they have offered when I needed grace, and the times in which they challenged me when I needed to be challenged. But for all of them, I am blessed and I am thankful.